Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I guess I should formally call it Replacing Department Hang Tags with Virtual Permits at the U of M. We are super excited to have everyone here with us. Before we kick things off and get into the real content, I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Kyle, and I'm a marketing specialist here on the Offstreet team. And yes, I'm super excited to be hosting today's webinar and kind of chat with some special guests. So, we've got a great session lined up, and we'll be diving into some really fun stuff here with some really cool people. Let's kick things off by introducing our special guests that are here for the webinar. So, first off, we have joining us from our lovely neighboring province to the east, Cameron Neufeld. He is the Director of Parking and Transportation at the University of Manitoba. Thanks for being here today, Cam. And also joining us will be nicknamed Backpack Boy, one of two, CEO of Offstreet, Matt Fallman. Thank you for being here as well. So, thank you, Cam and Matt, for joining today. We're super excited to pepper you with questions and get to know all about how the U of M replaced physical hang tags with virtual permits using Offstreet. So, let's get into it. These first questions I'll direct to you, Cameron. They're kind of going to be setting the scene, asking you more about your challenges at the U of M. So, first off, Cam, can you share a specific moment or story where you encountered challenges with managing physical department permits?
Absolutely. Just wanted to start by saying thanks, Matt and Kyle, for having me. Um, we had a lot of challenges with physical permits on campus. The biggest was likely that customers had to do a lot of the work, usually when parking, then walking to the area they were visiting to get a physical permit, fill it out themselves or have someone fill it for them, and then return to their vehicle. Oftentimes, they'd even get a parking citation before they even got back to their car, which was never ideal. Other times, there would be errors filling out the permits, whether the date was wrong, part of the license plate was missing. There was just a lot of pain points for the customer to have to deal with this. And using Offstreet has to validate plates has alleviated all of that. The other main challenge that we had was on the administrative side of things. It was a lot of work to keep inventory permits. Physical permits we had to sell, we'd had to send them out, reconcile them afterwards. So we would sell permits in bunches where often they were only valid for the fiscal year of which they were purchased. So inevitably it meant departments would have to come back at the end asking for refunds, wanting to return permits, which was then again another layer of administrative work. And also, at times we would say no, which would never be met positively from the customers. So now we can just run a monthly report and sort of send all of the customer transactions for a month with one charge and have it done in a matter of minutes, which used to take hours. So it's been really great for us.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of paper equals a lot of problems, which doesn't sound.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, next one, Cam. How did those challenges affect not just maybe the efficiency, but also like the overall experience for your team and then those people visiting?
The permit administration side of things and the refunds took up a ton of administrative work that could have been better spent, obviously, handling customer inquiries in real time or helping us grow our business. So that has been like an immediate win, not having our staff bogged down with the management of that physical permit inventory. From a customer standpoint, for the visitors, for me, it's all about reducing friction points. So that extra time it would take them to get a permit, go back to their car, it was very inconvenient, especially when it's like, inclement weather days, that now they can just do it from either their phone or they can get it done from the office and not have to do anything. So like the fact that they used to get parking tickets sometimes even when they had done the process right was just an immediate way to sour someone's visit to campus, and that's completely been alleviated now.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so were there maybe any surprising forms of fraud with like your older systems? And then how did you uncover those?
Fraud was sadly a really big problem, and very common. What we'd have is anything from people duplicating physical permits, or trying to pass off copies as originals. And as technology got better, the fakes got better. So it got really hard to spot in time. So another form of fraud that we had was people would actually take a one-time use permit and fill it out, let's say for a certain date, like December 11th, and then a week later change the 1 to a 7 and make it valid on December 17th. And we really had no mechanism other than to, pull out an actual physical inventory list of the permits to decipher what was fraudulent and what wasn't. So we had some, officers with a pretty keen eye that could bust some of this fraud, but we knew for a fact that a lot of it was getting passed and we were losing a lot of revenue from it. We did have also $350 theft of service fines, which we could levy to these people that we did catch with fraud, but that's certainly not a customer interaction that's going to go well. And so thankfully, since Offstreet's come on board, we've had almost zero instances of fraud. Once every couple months, we'll get somebody really innovative that finds a way to trick the system, but otherwise it's been completely removed. So that's been great.
Zero instance of fraud. That's pretty remarkable. I would say I'm changing that one to a seven. That sounds like something I maybe would have done back in the day, but definitely not anymore. Last question for you here before we get into kind of different focus. Can you walk us through maybe a typical enforcement scenario before and after integrating license plate recognition?
Sure. Prior to LPR, our enforcement was done entirely on foot. In our climate, that's certainly not ideal. Winters were very, very hard on our equipment and more importantly on the patrol staff. The foot patrol staff would have been obviously less productive, more prone to errors. And we would have, mechanisms like parkas that you'd have to hide your equipment in to keep the battery working. And we'd find patrol staff sitting in buildings warming up. And there's not much you can do about it in our climate, but certainly the efficiency was a lot different. We actually had students tell us stories that they would sit in a window and watch the patrol officer coming in their high vis vests, and they'd run out to their car and move their car as their cars as they approach to patrol. And so now with LPR in vehicles, it's much obviously difficult to spot. We can change up our routes faster. The entire process has become just much, much, much more efficient.
Nice. Love to hear that. Okay. Our next focus of questions is going to be kind of more on the implementation of Offstreet and then the results. So I'll bring in Matt to also answer some questions here. Um, and the first one I will throw over to Matt. So Matt, if you want to unmute for this one, could you share, Matt, how like an example of how Offstreet solution has solved a problem similar to the ones that Cam described, and then maybe something you didn't initially anticipate?
Yeah, happy to. First of all, thank you so much for being here and thanks for having me. So to answer your question, Kyle, I think since the U of M was our first higher ed customer, they really helped me learn a lot about how campus parking operations actually work and all the nuances involved with it. I assumed the challenge with physical permits was really primarily around a lack of integration with LPR enforcement and providing like a poor guest experience. But I totally overlooked all the administrative side of things, keeping track of your permits, like physically issuing them, like stuffing them into envelopes, the potential for abuse and fraud, and then having, limited information for occupancy and capacity planning. So that was a big learning curve. And then kind of the second part of your question, the primary reason we partnered with Bowling Green State University was that their physical permits was causing their visitor parking to effectively go like unmanaged. So their challenge was a lot more on the admin side of things than it was on like the physical permit integration. They couldn't tell how many visitor permits were being issued or for whom, and not having accurate data leads to a whole bunch of other issues. Can't track costs, you can't plan for capacity and occupancy, and those side of things. So that was a big learning curve for me.
Big learning. Okay, we're gonna have our Offstreet wizard in the back end send out another quick poll. I believe it's going to ask you what your biggest hurdles are. Feel free, everyone all the attendees, to give that a quick answer, and then we'll move on to our next question here. For Cam, how did your team react to the idea of moving to virtual permits? And were there any initial hesitations? How did you overcome those? And sorry, Cam, you're
Got it.
also just,
Got it. Uh, I guess like with any new system installation, there's always a bit of hesitation, but our team was mostly supportive of moving to virtual permits. The administration of physical hang tags is just such a large endeavor for an operation our size. We would have to basically physically touch 7,500 hang tags each summer, assigning them, reselling them in our system, as Matt mentioned, stuff them into envelopes, and then rely on the mail service to deliver them to customers. it was very arduous and far from seamless, but like more so there would be lost permits in the mail. There would be people that would accidentally get the wrong permit, or someone would, steal a permit out of a mailbox. So all kinds of fraud. And so the reason we had to do this reselling of these permits was, for starters, students turn over every year. So it was, a new group of people. But for staff, it was just out of fear of fraud, because we had too many people physically duplicating hang tags in their basement and selling them on, eBay or Kijiji or something. So we really had to knock down on that fraud. Despite having holograms and things on our permits, they found a way to duplicate them. So reacting to virtual permits was a positive for our staff for sure. As far as the customers go, there was some hesitation, just sort of trusting the system that they don't have to hang their physical hang tag anymore. We still, after all these years, it's been 8 years since we've gone to virtual permits for staff, and there's still people that hang their faded plastic hang tag in their mirror because they think they need to in order to park. But once they understood the benefits, as far as not having to move a hang tag back and forth for their mirror from one car to the other, they got on board really quickly.
Yeah, physical hang tags equals a lot of mail, and everyone kind of knows that right now, especially in Canada, you can't really trust the mail right now. But okay, I'm gonna throw this next one over to Matt. Um, how did working with U of M as your first university client push Offstreet to evolve? And is there a feature or approach that you developed that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, so one of the best parts of working with the U of M, and specifically like Cam and Richard, was how forthcoming they were with how their business and industry actually worked. That was immensely helpful, especially as someone who was new to the industry and relatively young at the time. Um, we have had tons of parking conversations about things unrelated to off-street and unrelated to visitor parking, which helped me and then our team, by extension, build a much more holistic view of campus parking operations, discussing things like pay stations and their relevance and how they're becoming less needed as customers move to mobile first. Um, then kind of second part of your question is like one thing that stuck out to me in our conversations that influenced our product was how difficult it is to ensure the department or event host is communicating proper parking instructions to their guest. Um, Parking teams often lose control of this communication, which can lead to a bunch of other issues. People going to the wrong lot, not sure if they are actually permitted or not, um, leading to tickets, support calls, just stuff you don't want. So product-wise, one way we're trying to address this is by helping not just with issuing permits for visitors, but helping with the transportation piece as well and logistics. So we've built email reminders that allow guests to put in their email and receive a reminder from us 24 hours before their parking session starts. And that email reminder will include your GPS coordinates and mapping support, custom like parking related instructions. You can attach files. There's contact information for support both to us and to parking services or whoever's hosting. So just trying to have a more holistic solution that addresses not just the issuance of the permit, but like the transportation logistics that go along with it.
Awesome. Yeah, I said it once, I'll say it again. I think communication is key. So good note on that. Cam, I'll hit you with kind of back-to-back questions here. First one, can you recall a guest's reaction or feedback that you maybe got from them about the new system that really stuck with you?
Yeah, I think one of the first use cases that we had for Offstreet on our core campus was for our president's office. And the office is in the administration building, which is a 150-year-old building. It's got marble staircases up the middle. They're on the third floor. And they had these, a lot of guests that were alumni and donors that were old, elderly people that were coming and trying to find the office. They didn't know where the elevator was, and they would often have to walk these stairs to get to the building. And I will recall getting that feedback of how nice it was when we finally found a solution to our long-standing problem, which was how do we validate these guests without making them do the work? And without even asking the president's office to contact their visitors to find their license plates in advance, like that was a lot of feedback that we got from departments saying we don't want to have to chase after our customers before they come for them to provide us information just so that we can then create something for them. Now we can put that into the customer's hands and send them a link and have them just validate before they come to campus and have that peace of mind that it's done before they even get there.
Yeah. People really want that seamless experience, and I think that really shows it. So, Cam, one more for you. What is one unexpected way that the new system has improved your parking operations or made your team's work easier?
Basically, what Offstreet allowed us to do was to go 100% virtual permits. And that's something that we went virtual for staff and student monthly permits and for casual areas in 2016 and spent 5 or 6 years sort of looking for a solution that would help us go 100% virtual for all the little pockets on campus of areas that we still had that physical inventory. And so there was lots of them, like predominantly department permits, bulk permits, event permits, things that we would continually not have a solution for. Offstreet really resolved all of that. So it kind of similar to what Matt said in the complexity of the campus parking experience and how he learned from universities, we learned from Offstreet how many different sort of tools that we could use it for to resolve that sort of problem. So we went from using it for one use case, which was just some visitor validations in a restaurant, and then rolled it over into the entire campus where now it's being used in pretty much by every department and has 100% reduced our physical permit inventory.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you for that. That is all the questions that I have, except for some sneaky ones coming up. But I'm going to open the floor to everyone in the audience to drop any questions that you have in the Q&A function. And while everyone is writing their questions in the Q&A function, I'll quickly get into something new we're doing, which is our new hot take segment. Do, 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 do. Um, Cam, I'm gonna start with you. Uh, what is a hot take that you have about the parking industry?
Hot take. Okay, so I talk a lot about friction points for customers, and my goal is basically to reduce them all so that parking becomes a seamless experience. What I think the industry, what parking and transportation industry should be moving towards is transactionless parking for everyone. So I know after the pandemic, we talked a lot about the need for flexible parking. There's a lot of people on hybrid work schedules who come and go sometimes and they need a spot, but they don't have permits that sort of fit to their schedules. So my vision for the industry is one day you could just drive to where you're going, you park your car, you go about your business, you come back and you leave and you've done nothing, but the parking system knows that you were there. And it puts that into your account. And at the end of the month, you get sent an invoice. You can reconcile it, pay it online in a quick two-step process, and go about your business. So that's sort of my vision. I'm not sure how the technology will do that. I'll throw that to the folks like Matt who can figure that out, but that's what I'd like to see down the road.
Love it. Okay, Matt, same question for you. What is your parking industry hot take?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how hot this take is, but kind of related to Cam. I do believe that hardware, with the exception of like LPR cameras, so parks, pay stations, meters, are going to decrease from being like primary tools used for parking management to rarely seen options. Kind of the same way you're seeing physical permits go from the norm to the exception. I anticipate a future where frictionless is going to be the norm. Most people will be paying for parking through their phone or laptop, like PC at home before they get there. I think you just look at like the fact that pretty much everyone under 40 is more or less addicted to their phone. I don't think they're going anywhere, and I think that you're going to see the relevance of hardware just continuing to decrease. Software is getting better as well. So yeah, that's my hot take.
What a take for both of you. Awesome. I pictured, a spotlight, dark room, and a mic in your hand when you guys were telling those hot takes, but maybe we'll do that in the future. Okay, thank you for doing that. We are going to now um, turn things over to our Q&A period here. So people have been dropping some questions in the Q&A function here. So just again, if anyone has questions for Matt or Cam, please drop those in there. We'll start off with this one. What advice would you give to organizations who have use cases that they find difficult to switch to virtual permits? I'll throw that to either of you.
I can take that. Um, I think the key thing is figure out like what is the difficulty in switching? Is it because you don't have like the ability to issue a permit type that's that flexible to meet that needs, or is it the issue of there's lack of interest from the stakeholder in making the transition? So whoever typed that question, can you provide a bit more context on that one?
Yeah, we'll see if they provide that. Um,
I can jump in for a second there.
totally.
Anytime we do system changes, it's about consultation. And so you can actually pilot a permitless project without actually being permitless. So if you offer a department an opportunity, say, hey, they've got a small group, 3 or 4 guests coming, you could have them gather plates in advance and charge them on the side and actually do a virtual permit sort of test where the customer doesn't need to display anything and then get that feedback from the customer. And I think once that department gets the feedback from the customer about how seamless it was versus the old method, it'll be a way of starting to help convince the powers that be that change to virtual is the way to go.
Mhm. Okay. Moving on to our next one. Someone is curious to know what effect taking sponsored permits digital has had on total number of validations, and do departments use these more now? I would assume that's for Cam.
Yeah, I would say they do. It's a good question. I should run the data on that, but I don't know exactly the numbers. But I would say it's hard also for us to gauge because we're no longer physically touching those permits the same way. So, in the past, we would have to make up every single permit that left our office, whereas now it's done virtually, right? So we do the reconciliation at the end of the month, but I would definitely say so because just the fact that it's made it so much less cumbersome to park, so they do use it more often.
Mhm. Okay. Um, One last one here. How do you evaluate, or how or do you evaluate ROI for new tech? Cameron.
Oh, that's a good question. The evaluation process is based on the savings of administrative time predominantly. So we can definitely pinpoint the fact that we have saved a ton of work and a ton of time to then either redirect that labor elsewhere or have it more focused on things that grow our business. So the savings have been very, very obvious. Also, just not even having to purchase paper stock. We used to spend about $15,000 a year on paper hang tags or plastic hang tags and paper permits. So that alone is a savings that we saw immediately when we went virtual.
Awesome.
I'd jump in on there too. I think I get this all the time because people on my team come to me to pitch new things they want to invest in. And I think one mistake I see people make here is they just look at the new product in isolation. As in, here's what the cost of it is. This is kind of the expected value. I also think it's helpful to do the opposite exercise of like, what's the cost of doing nothing? How much is this costing us today in kind of like hidden costs with time savings and stuff, and really try to compare apples to apples.
And there's also the benefit of a happier customer is hard to measure, but it's a huge perk, right? So if you've reduced those pain points and customers are happier, you have less negativity, it's good for everyone. So it's not always a measurable outcome, but there's so many positive outcomes to it.
Yeah, totally. Great answers. Okay, that looks like all the questions that we have in the Q&A, as well as possibly the chat. If anyone does have one, following the webinar, definitely feel free to reach out to the Offstreet team or directly to Cam or Matt themselves. But we will drop one more poll on the screen, just to kind of get one last question from you guys and to see if you guys would like more info or a demo or anything like that. But that is technically all the time we have for today. We want to keep these short so that you guys can, in and out. But yeah, so if you'd like more info, again, reach out to Cam or Matt or directly to the Offstreet team. They'll be, I'm sure, happy to chat with you or, help you with your needs. Huge shout out to Cam and Matt for joining us today. Thank you so much. A little virtual applause for both of you.